Good evening, and welcome to Hello, It's Us, a program based on the premise that life in general goes better if it's all of us going in the same direction, as opposed to you, me, and them going at cross purposes. Hello, It's Us is brought to you by a collaboration between the Extended Dream Foundation and Public Access Television Channel 18 and all their staff. I'm Terry Cunningham. This is my co-host, Keith Ruff.
Hello.
And tonight we're going to kind of have a potpourri of things, so hang on tight. First of all, we'd like to thank all the folks who came out for this year's Americans with Disabilities Act 24th anniversary celebration on July 26th on the Sheraton stage at the Ped Mall.
It was a good turnout.
It was a wonderful event. According to our people counters, at one point we had in excess of 225 people there.
That's good.
It's hard to count a moving crowd, but everything went very well. We had lots of very nice comments. Senator Harkin did a wonderful job.
Yes.
We have already made our reservation for the Sheraton stage next year. That will be Saturday, July 25th. Details to come next year as we get closer to the event, but we hope to see folks at that.
What else do we have, Jerry?
Well, speaking of the ADA, in the last several weeks, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has passed out of a Senate committee and is ready to have action on the floor of the Senate.
That's good news.
It is good news. It's bad news that we're basically the last country to approve it. And unfortunately, Senator Grassley is one of the folks who's keeping that from being passed. And I think that's a misinterpretation of the act. The act's not going to hurt the United States. Yeah. But by us not approving it, it's helping to prevent persons with disabilities all over the world enjoying the same rights we have.
Yes.
And I have read the act and compared it to our ADA, and they are virtually identical.
Yes.
So it's not too late for folks to contact Senator Grassley and urge him to cast his vote in support of the CRPD, or to go to the Senate site and check the CRPD out and see what other senators are not supporting it, and see whether we can generate the support to get it passed. According to last word, they want to take it up once they get back in September from the August recess, and to get an up or down vote on it before this session is over and folks head off to campaign.
That's what I would.
So we certainly would encourage people to push for that.
Either call, go on the internet.
Yeah, call or email or whatever.
Yeah.
And ask to talk to his person who handles disability issues. Along with the whole issue there with voting and that, we certainly want to encourage everybody to vote in November.
Yeah.
There's an incredible amount at stake this election cycle for everyone, but specifically for individuals with disabilities and the aging.
Yeah.
You know, there are incredible things that we could lose if the Republicans gain control of the Iowa Senate and the Senate nationally.
the U.S.
Yeah, that, you know, the programs that could cease to exist are just scary. You know, health programs, the minimum wage requirements, the health care, Social Security, Medicare, yeah, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, if you have an interest in that, and I don't know who shouldn't, if you're not on Social Security yet, eventually you're going to be. If you want to have Social Security around for that safety net and something that we've all worked hard for, you know, and unfortunately, Social Security too often makes up the largest part of somebody's retirement income.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And also, unfortunately, not everyone understands that their Social Security check is not going to replace their paycheck,
No.
because you don't get the same amount in Social Security as you did when you were working. If you want Medicare to continue so that you've got insurance after you retire, you know, it's important to check into who the individuals running in your areas are and to see what it is they support and don't support on disability and older aging issues.
And especially if you're not ready yet to retire, you want something to look forward to in the future.
Mm-hmm. And if you are, you want to keep it.
Yes.
You know, so it's really important. And I mean, there are so many commercials out there. And I think I got sick of them about 2 years ago, because it seems like some people have been campaigning that long. But you really need to check into some of that stuff and see, you know, who's doing what.
Yeah.
You know, you've got one side accusing Braley of missing all these VA committee meetings. Well, if you pay close attention to the commercials, they've gradually progressed. First, he missed 72% of the meetings. Then he missed 75% of the meetings. Then he missed 77% of the meetings. And now it's 79%. Yeah. Pretty soon he's not going to have attended a meeting.
Yeah.
So you need to check out and see what that is. By the same token, does Joni Ernst really not support a federal minimum wage? Does she really think people can survive on a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, which works out to be just around $15,000 a year?
Yeah.
You know, or could some of the other things? And, you know, I really don't see what significance are in those commercials that she grew up castrating hogs and feeding this and weeding beans and all that.
I don't see what that's going to do for the future.
No, but you need to check all that out, because, you know, much as both parties would deny it, there are crap in their heads. Now, just because your party put something out there in a commercial, I wouldn't take it to the bank,
No.
because they have millions of dollars at their disposal to put ads out there that don't always come out and accuse their opponent of something directly, but plants that seed for the sole purpose of trying to have their opponent
Look.
be forced to spend a lot of their money defending things or disproving things and not actually campaigning.
Yeah,
And, you know, I find this so sickening.
instead of campaigning and saying what they're gonna do, they gotta come to react to all the negative ads.
Yeah. In 2002, I ran for the Board of Supervisors in Marshall County. And there were 3 of us who ran for 2 positions that were open. And we all talked a little bit at the beginning of the campaign, and, you know, didn't sign any formal agreement or whatever, but we agreed that we would have a civil campaign.
Yeah.
And there wasn't going to be a lot of bad talking the other person and that. And we carried that out, you know, and we had a couple forum things where we all talked about what we would like to do and what we wanted to see happen, and kind of discovered that we were probably a lot closer on what our beliefs were than one might have thought. But not a penny of our money in campaigning went to saying anything negative about the other people. And I so wish that that was the way all the races in the county had run that year.
Yeah.
And I wish that was the way things happen now.
What we're trying to get at, people, is look behind the headlines.
Yeah.
There's a lot of headlines out there, a lot of ads. Look behind that. Find out what your favorite candidate is offering.
Yep. And along the lines of finding out what's going on, cities are always changing and always want to,
Yeah.
you know, develop here and develop this and redevelop this and all that kind of stuff. Not always, as far as I'm concerned, to the best interest of people in a given area or people in every economic situation. The city of Iowa City is currently doing the riverfront development
Yeah.
stuff. And because Uptown Bills and PATV Channel 18 and a number of other businesses and residences around here, Keith lives in a building that's in that area, are going to be affected
Yeah.
by some of the stuff that's going on. It's really, really important for people to check out what's going to go on there. There's the possibility that new building and new construction can come in, and depending on what they do, because there will be a number of benefits or a number of things they can do, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's accessibility, whether it's, God, I just blanked. Whether it's historical preservation of a
Yeah.
building. Depending on what you can do, you can add a story to what your building's going to be. So you could get a building up to 8 stories tall. And, you know, we're talking about an area from Burlington Street south.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, if you look,
Highway 6.
I think it actually goes a little beyond that even.
Okay.
But as you look at the makeup of that area, there's an incredible amount of apartments. There's lots of little businesses.
Yeah.
And you know, there's just a whole lot that potentially could happen to dramatically change the area, to force current landlords to raise the rent on current tenants, to force the taxes higher on current landlords, to potentially force existing landlords to sell their building, let it go for redevelopment, knock it down, redevelop themselves. And you know, I just kind of question whether anybody but the developers are going to be happy with this, because there are so many small buildings who the reality of it is going to be can't afford to do a lot of that stuff.
And it can also force low to middle income people out of the area.
Yeah, and your low rent housing and affordable housing and that are some of the issues that are involved in that. And you know, I have a serious concern with what's currently called affordable housing.
Yes.
Now, I think that needs to be redesigned a lot, because if many of the city employees, you know, police, firemen, a lot of folks can't afford housing in Iowa City, and have to live in another community in order to make it, there's a serious problem with the definition. I think that things need to be redesigned or renamed in terms of what housing is and who uses it. You know, and is clearly what's considered affordable housing now isn't necessarily doing the job. And because there are so many students who at some point will rent almost anything, because rent is so high in Iowa City, I think things need to be looked at and modified there so that there is affordable housing for students. And I really think the university is responsible for a lot of that. I think they should take the lead in providing student housing.
I personally think there should be some kind of rent control. It's getting out of hand.
Well, yeah, and I mean, some of it is. But it's because of that, you know.
Yeah.
Because some landlords know whether they fix a problem or not, however many bedrooms are in that house, there will be that many students out there
Yeah.
who, not necessarily by something being their first choice, but because they can't find anything
They'll take it.
that they can afford that's, you know, in the really decent category, that, yeah, they're forced to take it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know way too many students who have gone to answer an ad of a place for rent and have never gotten out of their car because of the way the place looked when they pulled up. And the way houses around it looked. And they just decided, no, that's not something that's going to happen. But, for everybody in the city, I think should take a chance to look at that plan, but especially the people who live in the area. And, there are a couple groups around who are beginning to form on it
Yeah.
to see whether we can influence this and get it moving in a direction that doesn't simply benefit developers.
And I think also we need more accessible housing, no matter whether it's all in one building or not. There's no excuse anymore to build something that is inaccessible.
Well, there certainly isn't, because it's against the law.
So they get away
You're
with
right.
it.
There aren't excuses to not have something accessible. And I mean, I have talked for years about there's not enough of a requirement in large complexes. I mean, I think the requirement now is like 5%.
Yeah.
5%.
That was
So,
years ago.
Yeah, which means if you build a 40-unit
A
building,
complex.
you have to have two units. And the powers that be can't figure out why we never get caught up or get ahead of this shortage of affordable, accessible units.
Yeah.
It's because the requirements are unreasonable.
And nobody bothered to look at them either.
Well, they've managed to ignore them. Hell yes, the developers are going to put those two in there and not question it. And the other issue with that is there's not a requirement that those units only be rented to
Right.
individuals with disabilities.
Right?
There should be, and I'm one of those people who think every unit should be accessible. Because if you build it right, nobody can walk in and say, oh, well, this is an accessible unit, I don't want it. You don't really notice that a light switch or a plug is down a little bit or up a little bit, or that a hallway is a couple inches wider, or that the bathroom has a support backer around the tub, shower, and stool, that if somebody needs grab bars, all they have to do is put them up, because it's invisible. People really don't take a lot of notice that door handles are lever action instead of round. If a window is a little lower or even sideways, so that it's easier for somebody with a disability to open and close, I don't think that makes a difference to people. A counter that's adjustable, every family would love.
And technically, what we're talking about is called universal design.
Exactly. Because it will help everybody.
Yes.
It just doesn't have to be an issue. Well, son of a gun, we've done it again. We have burned through our time, and we're actually worried with this show that we weren't going to be able to fill our time, but give us a microphone and a camera and let us go. So we actually had a whole nother topic that we were going to talk about, that we will put in the can for the next time we have to come up with an idea quickly.
So those of you who are watching, deeply think about what we talked about tonight and then take action.
Yes, please do.
Thanks,
Everybody.
Have
See you
a
next
good
week.
Labor Day weekend.
Yes. And come to, no, it will already been done, the art fair and flea market. Take care.
Take care of you. Bye now.